we need to talk about something that still doesn't sit right with a lot of people who truly understand what New England Patriots football has been built on over the last 2 decades. Because this is not just another league headline, and it's not just another debate show argument. This cuts directly into the legacy of the franchise and into how history itself is being judged. Bill Belichick, in his very first year of eligibility, was not voted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And no matter how anyone feels about how his tenure ended in New England, no matter how strained the relationship became between him and Robert Kraft at the end, that decision forces a serious conversation that Patriots fans cannot ignore. Let's be honest with each other for a second. By the time the 2021, 2022, and 2023 seasons were over, a lot of people in this fan base were exhausted. The football wasn't good, the offense was painful to watch, the roster decisions were being questioned every single week. So yes, many fans were ready for change. But being tired at the end does not erase what came before, and that's where this entire Hall of Fame conversation starts to fall apart. From 2000 through 2019, the New England Patriots were the standard of the NFL, not just in wins, but in preparation, adaptability, and postseason dominance. That era doesn't exist without Bill Belichick at the center of it. When you actually look at the resume, the frustration makes complete sense. 6 Super Bowl championships as a head coach, the most all-time, 9 conference championships, also the most all-time, 31 playoff wins, more than any head coach in history, 302 regular season wins, 3rd all-time, 333 total wins, 2nd all-time. And that's before you even include what he accomplished as a defensive coordinator with the New York Giants, where he won 2 more Super Bowls and authored game plans that are still studied today. This is supposed to be the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not a personality contest and not a popularity award. Yet according to reports surrounding the voting process, discussions among voters once again circled back to Spygate and this is where things start to feel less like objective evaluation and more like selective memory mixed with personal bias. Former Colts general manager Bill Polian, a longtime Patriots rival, was identified as a vocal figure during deliberations. The idea that Belichick should wait a year as a form of punishment for Spygate was floated during discussions. And even though Polian later denied directly pushing that idea, the damage was already done. Especially when he followed it up by saying he couldn't remember with certainty whether he even voted for Belichick, claiming he was 95% sure that he did. That explanation doesn't sit well when you understand how this process works. Hall of Fame voters sit in a room, debate each candidate in detail, and then cast votes that shape the historical record of the league. Forgetting whether you voted for a coach with this level of impact isn't like forgetting if you left a light on at home. It raises serious questions about accountability and consistency in the process itself. And for Patriots fans, it feels like the same old story. Accomplishments on the field being weighed against resentment off of it. What makes it even harder to accept is that Spygate and Deflategate are treated as if they exist in a vacuum. Jimmy Johnson, a Hall of Fame coach himself, openly said that many teams attempted similar practices over the years and that the idea was widespread across the league. Other coaches connected to those same eras and methods are already enshrined in Canton. So why is Bill Belichick being singled out now, especially when the Hall of Fame is supposed to reflect contributions to football, not grudges held by voters? Even Tom Brady weighed in, saying that if Belichick isn't a first-ballot Hall of Famer, then no head coach should be. And that statement carries weight because it forces a direct comparison. If another coach goes in on the first ballot down the line with a weaker resume, how does the Hall justify that decision without acknowledging the inconsistency? For Patriots fans, this feels like the legacy of the greatest dynasty in NFL history being quietly disrespected under the guise of standards. And that's why this matters beyond one coach and one vote. This is about how the Patriots era will be remembered, how dominance is judged, and whether personal feelings are allowed to outweigh undeniable results. So from your perspective as a Patriots fan, what is your reaction to Bill Belichick not getting into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot? And do you believe this decision damages the credibility of the Hall itself? Because once you get past the shock and the anger surrounding the Hall of Fame vote, the conversation naturally shifts to where the Patriots are right now and why. Moments like this feel even heavier for this fan base. This franchise is in a transition phase, trying to establish a new identity while still carrying the weight of 2 decades of dominance. And decisions like this feel like a reminder that the past is being judged more harshly as the present tries to take shape. While the league debates Bill Belichick's legacy, the Patriots are still very much focused on the immediate future. And that future is being defined by a roster that is fighting, learning, and growing in real time. One of the clearest examples of that right now is Will Campbell. His postseason performance has been under a microscope, and fairly so. Early in the playoffs, against the Los Angeles Chargers and the Houston Texans, it was rough. The pass protection simply wasn't there. a pass-blocking grade sitting in the high 30s, 9 pressures allowed, 3 sacks surrendered. That's not winning football, especially when your quarterback needs a clean pocket to operate. But what matters is how a player responds, and this is where the narrative starts to shift. Against Denver, Campbell showed real improvement. 0 sacks allowed, only 2 pressures. A much stronger pass-blocking grade that wasn't against a weak opponent either. He was lined up against Nick Bonito, one of the most dangerous pass rushers in the league, a player who finished the season with well over a dozen sacks. And yet, in that matchup, Bonito was practically invisible. 1 pressure, no tackles, no sacks, no impact plays. That tells you Campbell adjusted, learned, and elevated his game when it mattered most. Now the challenge gets even bigger. Super Bowl 60 is coming, and waiting on the other side is DeMarcus Lawrence. His playoff production speaks for itself. Multiple tackles for loss, sacks, forced fumbles, and constant pressure on the quarterback. Lawrence isn't just trying to win, he's trying to take over games. And that puts Will Campbell directly in the spotlight again because protecting Drake Maye is non-negotiable. Drake Maye himself is now part of the conversation in a way that should make Patriots fans both cautious and hopeful. The injury report showing him limited with a right shoulder issue isn't something you brush aside, especially on the biggest stage. If he's hit early and often, the entire game plan changes. The margin for error disappears. That's why Campbell's performance isn't just about personal redemption, it's about whether this offense can function at the level required to win a championship. And this is where everything connects back to the larger picture. For years, Patriots football was defined by situational excellence, by winning in the margins, by doing the little things right when the pressure was highest. That standard didn't vanish just because Belichick is no longer on the sideline. It's still the expectation, and players like Will Campbell are being measured against it, whether that's fair or not. So while the league debates history and voters argue over legacies, the Patriots are writing their next chapter in real time. This Super Bowl isn't just another game, it's a test of whether this team can carry forward the mindset that made New England what it was, even as the faces and voices change. It's about whether young players can rise when the moment demands it, and whether this franchise can remind everyone that it's still capable of meeting the biggest challenges head-on. Now, I want to hear from you. How confident are you in Will Campbell holding his own in Super Bowl 60? And how do you see this moment fitting into the bigger picture of where the Patriots are headed? And when you really step back and look at everything unfolding at once, it becomes clear why this moment feels so layered for Patriots fans. On one hand, you're watching the league hesitate to fully honor the architect of the greatest run in NFL history. On the other, you're watching a new Patriots core being tested on the biggest stage the sport has to offer. Those two realities are colliding, whether the league wants to admit it or not. This Super Bowl run isn't happening in a vacuum. Every snap, every protection call, every hit Drake Maye takes is being judged through the lens of what Patriots football has always represented. That standard wasn't created overnight, and it wasn't created by accident. It was built through years of discipline, preparation, and an understanding that when the pressure is highest, excuses don't exist. That's why the scrutiny on players like Will Campbell is so intense. It's not just about one matchup or one stat line. It's about trust. Can he be trusted to hold up when the defense knows the Patriots have to throw? Can he be trusted to give his quarterback that extra half second that separates a completion from a turnover? What makes this moment fascinating is that you can actually see the growth happening. Early playoff struggles didn't break Campbell. They forced adjustments. Technique improved. Awareness improved. And that Denver game wasn't just better, it was proof that he can respond when his back is against the wall. That's the exact trait Patriots fans have celebrated for years in players who rose in January and February. The challenge now is consistency, because DeMarcus Lawrence doesn't stop coming. He doesn't disappear after one series. He tests you snap after snap, and that's where championship games are decided. At the same time, Drake Maye's situation adds another layer of urgency. A limited throwing shoulder changes everything. Play calling tightens. Timing becomes critical. And suddenly, protection isn't just important, it's essential to survival. If Maye stays clean, the Patriots can execute their offense. If he doesn't, the margin for error collapses instantly. This is where offensive line play becomes the backbone of the entire game plan, and where players like Campbell can redefine how this postseason is remembered. And tying this all back to the Hall of Fame discussion, it's impossible to ignore the irony. While voters debate whether Bill Belichick's legacy should be delayed, his influence is still visible in how Patriots fans evaluate success. Accountability, adjustments, performing when it matters most. Those principles are still alive inside this organization, even as it moves forward under new leadership. The league may try to separate the past from the present, but in New England, they're always connected. This Super Bowl represents more than a chance at another banner. It's a statement opportunity, a chance for this team to show that the Patriots aren't defined by one ERA alone, but by a culture that demands growth, resilience, and execution under pressure. Whether this game ends in celebration or heartbreak, the performances we're about to witness will shape how this new chapter is viewed going forward. And the more you sit with it, the more this stretch feels like a defining crossroads rather than just another Super Bowl appearance. For years, Patriots teams were judged almost unfairly because winning had become expected. Close games weren't celebrated, they were criticized. Solid seasons weren't enough. They were considered failures if they didn't end with a trophy. That level of expectation doesn't disappear just because the roster changes. And it doesn't disappear just because the head coach is no longer on the sideline. It lives with the fan base, and it lives in moments exactly like this one. What makes this run different is that there is no safety net of inevitability anymore. Nobody is assuming the Patriots will figure it out. Nobody is giving them the benefit of the doubt. And in a strange way, that's what makes this version of the team compelling. They're being forced to earn belief again. One drive at a time, one adjustment at a time. That's why the details matter so much. A clean pocket on third down, a protection call picked up at the line, a tackle that doesn't panic when the pass rusher wins the first step. For Will Campbell, this game has the potential to be a career pivot point. Offensive linemen don't usually get remembered for one night, but Super Bowls have a way of changing that. If he holds his ground, if he keeps Drake Maye upright, if he turns a perceived weakness into a strength, the narrative around him shifts instantly. Suddenly, the early playoff struggles become part of a growth story instead of a label. That's how fast things move at this level. And for Drake Maye, this is about proving he can command the moment even when everything isn't perfect. Limited shoulder, massive stage, elite defense across from him, this is where decision-making, timing, and trust and protection all converge. Patriots fans have seen quarterbacks survive and thrive in these situations before, not because everything went right, but because they stayed composed when things got chaotic. That's the benchmark, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. All of this circles back to why the Hall of Fame debate struck such a nerve in the first place. Patriots fans aren't upset just because of a snub. They're upset because it feels like context is being ignored, like dominance is being reframed after the fact. And while voters can argue timelines and ballots, the reality is that the standard set in New England is still shaping how this team and this fan base sees football. That influence didn't end with one season, and it didn't end with one decision. This Super Bowl is another data point in that ongoing story. Another chance to show that the Patriots aren't just living off memory, but actively building something that can stand on its own, whether it ends with confetti or questions. The way this team competes will tell us a lot about where this franchise is truly headed next. And as this moment stretches on, it starts to feel less like an endpoint and more like a measuring stick. Not just for the players on the field, but for how the Patriots as an organization respond when the spotlight is unforgiving and the margin for error is razor thin. This is where reputations are either reinforced